Hello and welcome to 100 Yards of Football, Sports Talk Radio. I'm your producer, Jeremiah Long, and joining me is our host and our founder, the football encyclopedia himself, Mr. Vincent Turner, to talk about Marquez Stevenson out of the University of Houston. How's it going, Mr. Turner?
How you doing this morning, Mr. Long? How you doing, my brother?
Doing great. It's another great NFL draft prospect. This is Marquez Stevenson, the running back out of the University of Houston. Mr. Turner, please tell us, what is it about Mr. Stevenson that's going to be great, and what's going to bring us back to this video a year from now to recap exactly how it went?
Well, I'm going to tell you, Jeremiah, I'm going to talk about Mr. Stevenson because he played in the AAC with my hometown school. I'm from Memphis, Tennessee. He played against the Memphis Tigers his 4 years at the University of Houston. But I like this young man. I like him at the wide receiver position. A lot of people not talking about him in the 2021 NFL draft. People are talking about Devontae Smith out of Alabama, Jamar Chase out of LSU, Jalen Waddle out of Alabama. But I'm going to tell you, this young guy's a second tier of wide receivers that's going to come in the draft. When I think about Mr. Stevenson, I'm going to take you back. 1985. Remember that car, that Z28 Camaro? It had a lot of power, had a lot of speed in it. That's what Mr. Stevenson reminds me of. Let me go with my grade report. Speed for Mr. Stevenson, A+. Yards after catch, A+. Vertical ability, that means stretching the field, taking the top off, A+. Body control, A+. And deep ball threat, A+. This young man has all the makers of being a top-level playmaker in the National Football League. Now, he had some injury concerns at the University of Houston. He had a torn ACL in 2017. Then he had a broken collarbone his freshman year. But it looked like that he's overcame that. And at the end of his career, he had two pretty good seasons in 2019 and 2020 with the University of Cougars. So the production is off the charts. In his 4 years at Houston, 2,269 yards receiving, 147 receptions, almost 15 yards a catch, and 22 touchdowns. And this was all done, especially in 2019 and 2020. Think about this. The Eric King, after they played Oklahoma in the first game, he decided to redshirt, and now he transferred to Miami. Then in 2020, Mr. Stevenson had changes at the quarterback position. And the bottom line, he didn't have really good quarterback play his last 2 years, but he was still productive. Now I'm going to go to the game film where you can check him out. Texas Tech in 2018, 9 receptions, 171 yards. And then against SMU, that was 2018. Let me slow it down a little bit. Then in 2019 against SMU, game film off the charts, 5 receptions, 211 yards, 2 touchdowns. And as I said, he was the 1985 Z Camaro 28 that I used to love back in the day, black and silver with the T-tops. Then finally, when you compare his speed and you think about all the guys that's played in the NFL, his size, 5'10", 180 pounds, you got to go back to Trenton Holiday. That played at LSU. They had a pretty good career with the Denver Broncos. Then when I'm talking about taking the top off the defense, I think about Terry Glenn out of the Ohio State Buckeyes when he was with New England and Dallas. Bless his soul. He's in heaven now. Then think about Mark Duper that played with the Miami Dolphins. Then another guy that I learned, and I used to watch him play when I was a freshman at the University of Arkansas, my 4 years from 78 to 82. He played at Texas Olympic champion Johnny Lamb Jones, who went with New York Jets, had that type of speed. And then when you think about Mr. Stevenson and the speed he has, I always put all those receivers in this draft that got all this great speed. I give them a cliche and I put them in this box and I go back to the University of Tennessee from 78 to 82. Tennessee had a trio of receivers. I call them the 4x100 because they ran track at Tennessee. Willie Gault, Mike Miller, and Anthony Hancock. That's what type of speed Mr. Stevenson has. And then think about it. He played at the University of Houston. He had to follow some great names there to put his lore in the University of Houston football book. He followed the great M.O. Wright from 1971. He followed my man, Mr. Riley Odoms, who played some few years down the road with the Denver Broncos. He followed the great Lionel Fee that was there in 81. Then he followed the great 2 receivers that played in the running shoot under Andre Ware, Mr. Manny Hazard and Jason Phillips. Oh, yes, this young man has speed. 4 in the 40. And as you know from my grade report, I gave him an A+. I think if he keeps away from his injuries, this is a guy that could be one of the most underrated wide receivers going into 2021 NFL draft. And whoever gets him is going to be a steal because he can change the complexity of the offense, and he can be a guy that can fight fair in opposing defenses. Just look at the game film I told you. Go back to the Texas Tech game in 2018. Let me put it again. 9 receptions, 171 yards. In 2019 against SMU, 5 receptions, 211, 2 touchdowns, and he averaged 42 yards a catch in that game. And finally, to submit Mr. Marquez Stevenson, all you got to do is read the notes from the 2021 Senior Bowl. And all I read every day that the defensive backs down there were having trouble with him because he was what? Separating. So when you think about Mr. Marquez Stevenson, all you got to do is say, hey, it's a great song of Queen. We will rock you. That's what Mr. Stevenson is going to do in the 2021 NFL draft. And any team that drafts him are going to be very lucky. This Z28 Camaro.
Man.
Mr. Long. Yes, sir. Mr. Long.
Exciting, incredible. Man, that's a wild ride. So I was going to say, for everybody watching, make sure that you tell us what you think. We got one new comment in here. Mr. Michelangelo said Arkansas was in the Southwestern Conference from 1978 to 1982, if I remember correctly.
That's correct. I was there from 1978 to 1982. I graduated in 82 with a political science degree. And back then, I considered the Southwest Conference the greatest football conference in the world. Check the books. They had the most players going in the draft. When you look at all them great players when I was there, especially Arkansas, Ron Kankakney, Jimmy Walker, Billy Ray Smith, Gary Anderson, Bobby Duckworth, the Longhorns of Texas, Johnny Johnson, Donnie Little, oh man, Kenneth Sims, the Houston Cougars, Grady Turner, Baylor had the eyes, Mike Singletary. Oh man, it was off the chain. That's to my boy Mark Bass that I talk to every other day because he's from Lufkin, Texas. The Southwest Conference had it going on. And by the way, when I was there also, SMU had the Pony Express, Craig James and Eric Dixon. And that's right, Roland Sales from Fort Worth, Texas. I know him personally. Peg Soy, baby, we rockin'.
That's awesome.
Sorry, Jeremiah,
no, keep them coming, man. If any of you, anybody watching has any other comments or any other great people that they want us to mention, then please throw it out there, and maybe we can do something about Ronald Sells in the future. That's a great person. But for everybody else watching on YouTube, Twitch, or on Facebook, make sure to join us over on our podcast, which is 100 Yards of Football. So just go over to Spotify or go over to Apple or anywhere that you listen to podcasts and just look up 100 Yards of Football and make sure to join us because we've got this great team. We've got Vincent, Mr. Football Turner right here. Obviously, he knows so much about the world of football and football history. We've got two-time All-American Bobby Butler. We've got Georgia Prep coach extraordinaire Kevin the Bull Jones. And we've got Logan Landers, who brings us some incredible draft profiles every single week. And myself, the producer, Jeremiah Long. And you never know, we might throw in another basketball show or a UFC show or something to do with baseball on our other channel with 100 Yards of Sports. So make sure that you join us every time for all of those. And for everybody here at 100 Yards of Football, I am Jeremiah Long, the producer, and this is our host, Vincent Turner, and we'll see you just a little bit later for another